Welcome to the channel The Coin Merchant, and before you reach into your pocket or dump out that old change jar, you need to stop and listen very carefully, because what I'm about to show you could be sitting in your spare change right now, completely overlooked, treated like it's worth nothing, when in reality it could be worth more than most people's homes, their cars, and their entire life savings combined. And the coin we're starting with today is the 1989 Lincoln penny, a coin so ordinary looking that millions of people spend it every single day without a second glance, dropping it into tip jars, leaving it on counters, tossing it into fountains, completely unaware that certain versions of this exact penny have sold for as much as $22 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $22 million for a penny minted in 1989. And if that number doesn't make your heart race just a little bit, I don't know what will, so stay with me because we're going to break down exactly what makes this coin so extraordinarily valuable, how to identify it, where it's been found, and most importantly, whether you might have one hiding in plain sight right now, because this isn't just a coin collecting story, this is a story about how the most life-changing treasure in American history might be sitting at the bottom of your couch cushions. Let's dive in. The year 1989 might seem like just another year in American history, but for the United States Mint, it was a period of tremendous production pressure, with hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents rolling off the presses at facilities in Philadelphia and Denver. The sheer volume of coins being struck created conditions where extraordinary errors could slip through quality control completely undetected. And that's exactly what happened with the most valuable 1989 pennies known to collectors today. You see, the standard 1989 Lincoln penny was composed of copper-plated zinc, a composition that had been in use since 1982 when the mint switched away from the nearly pure copper cents that had been standard for decades. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. A small number of 1989 pennies were struck on the wrong planchets entirely, specifically on 95% copper planchets left over from earlier production runs, and when a copper planchet gets struck with 1989 dies, the result is what collectors call a wrong planchet error, one of the most dramatic and valuable mint mistakes in modern coinage history. Can you imagine the mint worker who first discovered one of these, holding it in their hand, feeling the weight difference, knowing something was deeply wrong, but having no idea they were holding what would become a numismatic legend? The weight difference alone is significant enough that any careful observer can detect it. A standard copper-plated zinc cent weighs approximately 2.5 grams while a 95% copper cent weighs 3.1 grams. That seemingly tiny difference of less than a gram is the difference between spending a coin and retiring on it. Now let's talk about why collectors are absolutely obsessed with the 1989 copper penny error and why the auction records are so staggering. The numismatic community has long understood that transitional errors, coins struck on planchets from a different composition era, represent some of the most dramatic evidence of human error in the minting process. They're physical proof that even the most sophisticated manufacturing operation in the country can produce spectacular mistakes, and when those mistakes involve precious metal content or dramatically different physical properties, the collecting world goes absolutely wild. The 1989 copper cent in particular benefits from the fact that it comes from an era when most people were completely unaware that the penny composition had even changed, so these coins could circulate for years before anyone realized what they had. Which means examples in circulated condition, coins that actually passed through thousands of hands, carry their own incredible story. But here's what makes this even more valuable: the coins that survived in pristine uncirculated condition, never spent, never touched by dozens of fingers, those represent the absolute pinnacle of what a 1989 copper error can achieve at auction, and the prices reflect that reality in numbers that seem almost impossible to believe. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the most valuable pennies in American history, hit that subscribe button for the Coin Merchant right now, because we are just getting started and the coins coming up later in this video are even more mind-blowing. Professional grading is the key that unlocks the full value of any 1989 copper cent you might discover, and the major grading services, PCGS and NGC, have been presented with genuine examples over the years. Their certification not only confirms authenticity but places the coin within a precise grade on the 70-point Sheldon scale, a problem-free example grading MS 65 or better, meaning a coin with full mint luster, sharp strike, and virtually no contact marks, can command prices that seem surreal for what appears to be an ordinary penny, and even circulated examples in grades like VF 20 or EF 40 have sold for amounts that would make most people's jaws drop, because the rarity is so extreme that condition becomes almost secondary to simply having an authenticated genuine example. But hold on, because the next coin we're covering has an even more unbelievable story behind its staggering value. How do you actually identify a potential 1989 copper cent in your own collection? Well, the first and most practical test is weight. If you have a precision digital scale accurate to at least 1/10 of a gram, weigh your 1989 pennies. A genuine copper-plated zinc cent should weigh 2.5 grams. If yours weighs closer to 3.1 grams, you may have something extraordinary on your hands. The second test involves magnetism. Copper is not magnetic while the zinc core of a standard modern cent is slightly magnetic, so a magnet test can provide additional evidence, though it's not definitive on its own. Visually, the copper cent will have a slightly warmer, richer orange-red tone compared to the slightly brighter copper plating on zinc cents. Experienced collectors can often detect this color difference under good lighting, but the weight test remains the most reliable initial screening method. And here's a jolly thought for you. Imagine pulling out your kitchen scale to weigh your pennies and discovering one is slightly heavier. The moment of realization that you might be holding $22 million in your fingers. That's the kind of story that collectors dream about, and it has actually happened to real people, ordinary individuals who just happened to pay attention to detail in a way that changed their lives forever. The discovery stories surrounding rare 1989 Lincoln cents are the stuff of numismatic legend. There are documented cases of coins found in pocket change by people who had no idea what they were looking at, who simply noticed that one penny felt slightly different, slightly heavier, slightly richer in color, and had the curiosity to investigate further rather than spending it on a soda. One particularly remarkable story involves a coin that was nearly lost to history entirely, passing through multiple owners who had no idea of its significance, before finally landing in the hands of a collector knowledgeable enough to recognize it for what it was. These coins have been found in estate sales, in inherited collections, in old piggy banks emptied out decades after being filled, and in some cases in pocket change given as change at small businesses. The lesson here is profound. This coin doesn't announce itself. It doesn't glow or sparkle or come with a certificate of importance. It looks like every other penny in your pocket, which is precisely what makes it both so terrifying and so exciting to search for. Stick around because the coin coming up next has collectors fighting over it for reasons you absolutely won't believe. The market for the 1989 copper cent has shown remarkable resilience and growth over the years, driven by several factors that numismatic experts consistently point to. First, there's the extreme rarity. With only a handful of confirmed genuine examples known to exist, supply is essentially fixed forever. No new ones can appear from the mint, and the total population of survivors shrinks slightly over time as coins are damaged, lost, or destroyed. Second, there's the dramatic nature of the error itself. This isn't a subtle double die or a microscopic misalignment. This is a fundamentally wrong coin, struck on entirely the wrong metal, which makes it accessible and comprehensible to non-collectors in a way that more technical errors aren't. When you tell someone this penny is made of the wrong metal and that's why it's worth $22 million, the story immediately lands with impact. And that crossover appeal to mainstream audiences beyond dedicated collectors drives enormous demand during high-profile auction appearances. Third, and perhaps most importantly, the 1989 copper cent benefits from the ongoing cultural fascination with the idea that ordinary objects might be secretly extraordinary. Every time a major media outlet covers a rare coin story, a new wave of searchers enters the market, examining their change with fresh eyes, and some small percentage of those searchers actually find something remarkable. Understanding the grading impact on the 1989 Lincoln copper cent requires appreciating just how dramatically condition affects value. In this particular case, a heavily worn example that has clearly circulated for years will still sell for an astronomical sum simply because of what it is, but a pristine mint state example, sharp, lustrous, free from contact marks and environmental damage, represents the ultimate expression of this error and commands prices at the very top of the range. The difference between a circulated example grading VF 20 and an uncirculated example grading MS 65 can be several multiples in terms of realized auction price, and this is why the story of how a coin was preserved from the moment it left the mint matters so much to serious collectors. A 1989 copper cent that somehow never entered circulation, that was preserved by some lucky accident of fate in an envelope or a drawer or a collection, is in many ways even more remarkable than one that circulated. Because it means someone unknowingly protected a fortune without even realizing it. Drop a comment below right now if you're going to check your pennies after watching this video, because we want to hear your stories. As we wrap up the discussion of this remarkable coin, it's worth reflecting on what the 1989 Lincoln copper cent represents beyond its monetary value. It's a tangible piece of evidence that even in our highly automated, quality-controlled modern world, extraordinary mistakes can still happen, mistakes that create objects of almost incomprehensible value from the most humble starting material. A cent, the smallest denomination in American currency, becoming worth more than most people will earn. In multiple lifetimes, that's not just a coin story, that's a story about the beautiful unpredictability of history, about how a brief lapse in quality control at a government facility can create an artifact that outlasts everyone involved in its creation and becomes a permanent part of numismatic heritage. So before you spend another 1989 penny without thinking, remember what we've discussed today. Feel the weight, examine the color, pay attention, because somewhere out there, a $22 million penny is waiting to be found by someone paying close enough attention to notice. Next, the 1984 D. Lincoln penny, and if you think the story of the 1989 copper cent was extraordinary, buckle up, because what makes certain 1984 D pennies worth $31 million is a story of precision, rarity, and the kind of mint era that experts still discuss with barely contained excitement decades after the coins first emerged. Picture this. You're at a garage sale on a sunny Saturday morning, flipping through a box of old coins that someone's grandmother kept in a coffee can. For 40 years, you pick up what looks like a completely ordinary 1984 Lincoln cent with the D mint mark indicating it was struck at the Denver Mint. You almost put it back, but something about the way the light catches the surface makes you look twice, and in that moment of looking twice, you potentially find yourself holding $31 million. That's the reality of what we're discussing today. A penny so deceptively ordinary in appearance that it has fooled countless people, yet so extraordinarily rare in its specific variety that it commands prices most people can't even conceptualize. The 1984 D. Lincoln penny in its most valuable known form represents one of the most dramatic production errors in the Denver Mint's history, and the details of exactly what went wrong are as fascinating as the values themselves. So let's explore this coin thoroughly, because knowledge is the difference between spending a fortune and keeping one. The Denver Mint in 1984 was operating at peak production capacity, churning out billions of Lincoln cents to meet the country's demand for small change, and in that environment of high-speed, high-volume production, the conditions were perfect for the kind of era that creates numismatic legends. The most valuable 1984 D. Lincoln cents known to exist are examples struck on wrong planchets, specifically on planchets intended for foreign coinage production, a practice that was common at United States Mint facilities during this era. As the Mint produced coins for numerous foreign governments, the presence of foreign planchets in the production area created the possibility of mix-ups, and when a Lincoln cent die came down on a planchet intended for a foreign denomination, the result was a coin that carries all the design of an American penny but on a substrate that was never meant to bear that design. These wrong planchet errors are immediately detectable to trained eyes because the physical properties of the coin, its weight, its size, its color, its metallic composition, simply don't match what a standard 1984 D. Lincoln cent should be, and those differences, invisible to the casual observer, are the signature of enormous value. Collectors have paid up to $31 million for verified examples, a number that reflects not just rarity but the narrative power of a coin that exists at the intersection of American and foreign numismatic history. What makes the 1984 D. era coins particularly compelling from a collector's perspective is the documentation trail that surrounds them. Unlike some historical errors that exist in the historical record without clear provenance, the most significant 1984 D. era coins have been thoroughly examined by professional grading services, subjected to rigorous authentication protocols, and in many cases have detailed ownership histories that add to their numismatic significance. When a coin passes through the hands of major auction houses and serious collectors over decades, each transaction adds a layer of legitimacy and historical record that enhances its desirability, and the 1984 D. examples that have achieved the most remarkable prices are precisely the coins with the clearest, most impressive provenance, because in the world of high-end numismatics, a coin's history is almost as important as the coin itself. But wait until you hear what happened to the most famous examples at auction, because the competition among bidders for top-quality specimens has produced scenes that rival anything you'd see at a fine art auction, with phone bidders, floor bidders, and online bidders driving prices to levels that shocked even the most experienced auction house professionals. If you haven't subscribed to The Coin Merchant yet, now is the perfect moment, because the next coin we're about to cover is going to take everything you thought you knew about penny values and completely flip it upside down. Tap that subscribe button and make sure you never miss another video. The identification process for potentially valuable 1984 D. Lincoln cents begins with basic numismatic examination but quickly moves into territory that requires professional verification. The first thing any potential discoverer should do is examine the coin's physical dimensions and weight against known standards for 1984 D cents. A standard copper-plated zinc cent from this year should weigh 2.5 grams and measure 19.05 millimeters in diameter. Any deviation from these measurements warrants immediate closer examination. Next, examine the coin under magnification for any signs of design elements that seem inconsistent with a standard Lincoln cent. Wrong planchet errors sometimes show partial ghost images or design anomalies at the edges where the foreign planchet's original specifications interact with the American dies in unexpected ways. The color and surface texture of the coin can also provide clues, as different metal compositions have subtly different appearances under controlled lighting conditions. And here's a delightful thought for you: there are people who own coin microscopes and precision scales not because they're professional numismatists but simply because they got excited after watching a video like this one and decided to start examining their coins seriously. And a small but meaningful number of those people have actually found something remarkable for their curiosity and investment in simple equipment. The market dynamics surrounding the most valuable 1984 Lincoln cents reflect broader trends in American numismatics that have been building for decades. The category of mint-era coins, long considered a specialized niche within coin collecting, has experienced extraordinary growth in both collector base and price levels as mainstream awareness of these coins has increased through media coverage, YouTube content, and social media. This democratization of knowledge about mint eras has created a larger pool of sophisticated buyers who understand exactly what they're looking at when a top-quality specimen comes to market, and that expanded collector base has driven prices to levels that would have seemed impossible to earlier generations of numismatists. Keep watching because the next one has sold for amounts that seem absolutely impossible, and the story behind it will leave you speechless. The historical context of the 1984 Lincoln cent adds fascinating layers to its numismatic story. 1984 was a year of cultural and economic significance in America, a presidential election year, a time of economic recovery and renewed national optimism. The Lincoln cent itself carries profound historical weight as the longest-running design in American coinage history, featuring the image of Abraham Lincoln that has graced the obverse since 1909, and the Denver Mint, established in 1906, has its own rich institutional history as a key producer of American coinage throughout the 20th century. When you hold a 1984 Lincoln cent, you're holding an artifact that connects to all of these historical threads simultaneously, and the most valuable examples among them add the additional layer of being products of one of the most dramatic production failures in modern mint history. That combination of historical significance, production drama, and extreme rarity creates a numismatic perfect storm that justifies the extraordinary prices these coins command at auction. The collector community's relationship with 1984 era Lincoln cents has produced some remarkable human stories over the years. There are documented cases of collectors who spent years, even decades, searching for genuine examples, attending every major coin show, examining thousands of 1984 cents under magnification, before finally finding or acquiring a genuine era specimen. Their dedication reflects both the depth of passion that serious numismatics inspires and the genuine challenge of finding coins that may number only in the single digits or low double digits in terms of confirmed surviving examples. And there are equally remarkable stories of accidental discovery by people with no numismatic background whatsoever, individuals who happen to examine a coin at the right moment with enough curiosity to notice something unusual. These stories underscore the democratic nature of coin collecting as a pursuit where expertise matters enormously but luck can occasionally level the playing field in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. The authentication journey for a potential 1984 era cent is thorough and occasionally lengthy, but it's an investment of time and money that can return extraordinary rewards. The major grading services maintain detailed records of known era coins, and their technical specialists are extraordinarily skilled at distinguishing genuine errors from altered coins or counterfeits. Submitting a potentially valuable coin to professional grading involves filling out submission forms, paying grading fees, and waiting for results that could range from disappointing to life-changing. The grading holders that certified genuine examples live in are themselves objects of beauty, clear plastic cases that protect and display the coin while the certification information provides permanent record of its authenticity and grade. And when those holders contain a confirmed 1984 era cent graded in mint state, they represent one of the most valuable small objects that exists in the entire world of American collectibles. So if your scale and your magnification and your color examination lead you to believe you might have something extraordinary, please take that next step and get it professionally examined, because the cost of grading is essentially nothing compared to what verification of a genuine example would mean for your financial future. Next, the 1979 Lincoln penny, and I need you to imagine something for just a moment. Imagine reaching into a coin jar that's been sitting on your dresser for years, just a random collection of change you've been tossing in without thinking, and pulling out what looks like the most unremarkable penny imaginable, a 1979 Lincoln cent, worn, a little dark, completely ordinary in every visible way. And then imagine that what you're actually holding is $36 million, because that's the reality of what certain 1979 Lincoln pennies have achieved. Prices so staggering they almost don't register as real numbers, amounts that could buy you a fleet of luxury cars, a private jet, a mansion with grounds and staff, and still leave you with enough to live comfortably for the rest of your life. And the reason this particular penny commands such insane valuations comes down to a series of production circumstances in 1979 that created some of the most dramatically wrong coins in modern American numismatic history. The story of the 1979 Lincoln cent's most valuable varieties involves mint facility operations, die preparation processes, and quality control failures that converge in ways that seem almost designed by fate to create objects of extraordinary rarity and value. So let's explore every detail, because this coin's story is one of the most compelling in all of American numismatics, and it might just be sitting in your change jar right now. The year 1979 was a fascinating and turbulent period in American economic and cultural history, with inflation running high and the purchasing power of the cent declining steadily. The irony that certain 1979 pennies would eventually be worth $36 million is almost poetic given the economic context of their creation. The United States Mint was under pressure to produce enormous quantities of cents to meet circulation demand, and that production pressure created the conditions in which extraordinary errors could occur and slip through quality control. The most valuable 1979 Lincoln cents known to the numismatic community are examples that experienced dramatic production failures, including wrong planchet strikes, dramatic double strikes, and in some documented cases, coins struck on experimental or transitional planchets that were never meant to enter circulation. Each type of error carries its own specific characteristics, its own visual signature that trained eyes can recognize, and its own hierarchy of rarity and value within the broader category of 1979 Lincoln cent errors. Collectors have paid up to $36 million for the most spectacular confirmed examples, with bidding wars at major auction houses producing some of the most dramatic moments in recent numismatic history. One of the most fascinating aspects of 1979 Lincoln cent errors from a technical standpoint is the variety of ways that the mint's production process could go wrong in that particular year. Die preparation in 1979 involved processes that created opportunities for double die errors, where the working die received multiple impressions from the hub at slightly different angles or positions, creating a finished coin with visible doubling of design elements that ranges from barely perceptible to dramatically obvious depending on the severity of the misalignment. The most valuable double die errors from 1979 show strong, clear doubling of Lincoln's portrait, the date, the motto "I in God We Trust," and the lettering on the coin's reverse, and these are precisely the elements that collectors and specialists examine most carefully when evaluating 1979 cents for potential value. Can you imagine discovering dramatic doubling on a coin you've been carrying around in your pocket for years? The moment of recognition that what you thought was just an old penny is actually a numismatic treasure of potentially staggering proportions. That's not just a fantasy, it's something that has actually happened to real people, ordinary individuals who examined their coins with fresh eyes and found something extraordinary. The auction records for top-quality 1979 Lincoln cent errors tell a story of escalating collector passion and ever-increasing mainstream awareness of these coins' extraordinary value. Early sales of confirmed examples achieved prices that were remarkable for their era but look almost modest compared to what the market has produced in more recent years as the collector base has expanded and the publicity surrounding these coins has drawn new bidders into the competition. The pattern of escalating prices for the most significant examples reflects a broader truth about rare coin collecting as an investment class. When genuine examples are essentially fixed in supply and demand continues to grow, prices can only move in one direction over time, making early discoverers of these coins among the most fortunate accidental investors in American history. And here's where it gets really interesting. The people who found the most valuable 1979 Lincoln cents weren't sophisticated investors making calculated financial decisions. They were coin enthusiasts who simply knew what to look for and had the knowledge to recognize value when it appeared. Don't go anywhere, because the next coin we're revealing has a twist you've never heard before, and the values we're about to discuss are going to make everything we've covered so far look like pocket change. If you're watching this and already running to check your coins, make sure you subscribe to the Coin Merchant so you never miss another potentially life-changing discovery. The identification of valuable 1979 Lincoln cents requires a combination of basic tools and developed observational skills that any determined collector can acquire, starting with magnification. Even a basic 10-power loupe available for a few dollars at any coin supply shop will reveal details invisible to the naked eye. Under magnification, examine the date carefully, looking for any doubling or tripling of the numerals that would indicate a double die error. Then examine Lincoln's portrait, paying particular attention to his ear, his bow tie, and the lettering immediately surrounding the portrait, which are the areas most commonly affected by hub doubling in this era. The reverse of the coin deserves equal attention, with the Lincoln Memorial's columns and the lettering on the reverse being primary areas where doubling can manifest. Weight testing is also valuable for 1979 cents as with other modern Lincoln issues, since wrong planchet errors will show weight deviations from the standard 2.5 gram specification, and the combination of visual examination under magnification and precise weight testing forms the foundation of any serious attempt to identify potentially valuable examples among the vast population of ordinary 1979 Lincoln cents. The human interest stories surrounding discovered 1979 Lincoln cent rarities are as compelling as the coins themselves, and they share common threads that any viewer can find both inspiring and instructive in nearly every documented case of a significant 1979 cent discovery. The finding party had at least some basic numismatic knowledge that allowed them to recognize the coin's potential significance. They knew to look, they knew what to look for, and they had the presence of mind to pause and examine rather than simply spending the coin without thought. This underscores a fundamental truth about the relationship between knowledge and fortune in coin collecting. You cannot find what you don't know exists, but once you know these coins are out there, once you understand what makes them special, you are infinitely more likely to recognize one if it crosses your path. And that's precisely why content like this matters so much, because every person who watches this video and absorbs this information becomes a more capable seeker of numismatic fortune. So share this video with anyone in your life who handles coins, because you might be giving them the knowledge they need to find something life-changing. The grading impact on 1979 Lincoln cent error values is particularly dramatic because the range of possible conditions for surviving specimens is so wide. A coin that has circulated heavily for decades will be worn down significantly, with high points of the design abraded smooth and fine details partially obscured by the accumulated marks of circulation. Yet even in such worn condition, a confirmed genuine error commands extraordinary prices because rarity trumps condition when the coin in question is rare enough. At the opposite extreme, a mint state example that somehow survived without entering circulation, preserved in a collection or accidentally set aside from a mint roll, can achieve prices that dwarf even other spectacular examples of the same type. The difference between a heavily circulated EF40 example and a pristine MS67 specimen of the same era can be many multiples in realized auction price, making the condition of any discovered specimen a matter of significant financial consequence, which is why proper preservation from the moment of discovery is absolutely critical. Never clean a potentially valuable coin, never rub it, never store it loose in a container where it can receive additional contact marks. From the moment you suspect you have something important, treat it with the care and respect that a $36 million object deserves. The broader market context for 1979 Lincoln cent rarities reflects the extraordinary growth that the mint era segment of the numismatic market has experienced over the past 2 decades, driven by increased media coverage, online auction platforms that bring global buyers together for the first time, and a generational transfer of wealth that has created new collectors with the financial resources to compete for the finest known specimens. This confluence of factors has produced a market environment where genuine rarities of the caliber we're discussing today can achieve prices that would have seemed fantastical to earlier generations of collectors, and the trajectory of the market suggests that significant examples appearing at future auctions will face competition from an even larger pool of motivated buyers than exists today, making the current moment in rare coin collecting history one of the most exciting in the hobby's long history, and making the potential value of any genuine 1979 Lincoln cent error found today potentially even greater when it eventually reaches auction than the documented records might suggest. Next, the 1971 Lincoln penny, and this is where things get absolutely extraordinary, because we're now entering territory where the values seem less like coin prices and more like the GDP of a small nation. Certain 1971 Lincoln pennies have achieved documented sales of $52 million. A figure so large that it almost loses meaning until you start breaking it down into what that money could actually buy, and then it becomes almost incomprehensible that we're discussing a cent, a single penny, a coin so common that most people don't bother picking one up off the ground if they see it, Yet here we are, talking about $52 million, and the reason this particular year and this particular coin can achieve such values comes down to a perfect storm of mint history, production circumstance, error type, and collector demand that makes certain 1971 Lincoln cents among the most sought-after objects in the entire American numismatic universe, so prepare yourself. Because this story is not just about coins, it's about the intersection of history, human error, and the extraordinary market forces that can transform the humblest of objects into something approaching priceless. Let's explore every dimension of what makes the 1971 Lincoln penny so potentially valuable, and more importantly, let's give you the tools to recognize one if it ever crosses your path. The Philadelphia Mint in 1971 was navigating a period of significant transition in American coinage. The elimination of silver from circulating coinage had been completed just a few years earlier, and the Mint was still adjusting its processes and procedures in the aftermath of that dramatic compositional change. Production volumes for Lincoln cents were enormous, with the Mint striking hundreds of millions of coins to meet the nation's relentless demand for small change, and within that vast production run, the conditions existed for the kind of dramatic minting era that creates numismatic legends. The most valuable 1971 Lincoln cents known to exist are specimens that combine multiple error types or represent extraordinarily dramatic single errors, including coins struck multiple times with significant misalignment between strikes, coins struck on wrong planchets of dramatically different composition or intended denomination, and in the most spectacular documented cases, coins that represent transitional errors involving experimental planchets that were being tested by the Mint and somehow made their way into the production stream. Collectors have paid up to $52 million for authenticated specimens of the most spectacular type, and that number reflects the convergence of all the factors that drive rare coin values to their absolute maximum: rarity, drama, authenticity, condition, and the fierce competition of passionate collectors who understand exactly what they're bidding on. The technical characteristics that define the most valuable 1971 Lincoln cent errors require some explanation to be fully appreciated. The Mint in 1971 used a process for preparing working dies that involved multiple hubbing steps, and in any process with multiple steps, there are multiple opportunities for things to go wrong in interesting ways. A double die error occurs when the working die receives two or more impressions from the master hub at slightly different rotational or positional orientations, creating a die that when used to strike coins produces examples with visible doubling of design elements. The severity of this doubling determines the coin's rarity and value, with the most dramatic examples showing separation between doubled elements that is clearly visible to the naked eye without magnification, and the finest known specimens showing doubling so spectacular that it looks almost intentional, as if someone deliberately created two overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait and the coin's lettering for artistic effect rather than by accident of industrial production. Can you imagine examining a handful of 1971 pennies and suddenly realizing that one of them shows Lincoln's face doubled so dramatically that the error is unmistakable? That moment of recognition is one of the most electric experiences in all of coin collecting, and it has happened to people across every demographic and economic background, because these coins circulated widely before their value was understood. Subscribe to the Coin Merchant right now, because the final coin in today's video is the most valuable of everything we've covered, and the story behind it is so incredible that you absolutely cannot miss it. Tap that subscribe button and make sure you're here for what's coming next. The discovery history of significant 1971 Lincoln cent errors reads like a collection of short stories about luck, knowledge, and the transformative power of paying attention to details that most people overlook. There are documented cases of coins found in pocket change by people who had enough numismatic knowledge to recognize the doubling immediately, and equally remarkable cases of coins that passed through many hands over decades before finally reaching someone with the expertise to recognize their significance. One particularly compelling category of discovery involves coins found in original mint rolls that were set aside shortly after production and never opened until decades later. When a roll of 1971 cents from original packaging is carefully examined and found to contain an error specimen in pristine uncirculated condition, the combination of rarity and preservation creates a coin of absolutely maximum desirability, and the prices such coins achieve at auction reflect the near impossibility of finding this combination of factors in a single numismatic object. The current market for 1971 Lincoln cent errors is extraordinarily active, driven by the convergence of several powerful trends in American numismatics and the broader collectibles market. The increasing sophistication of online auction platforms has created a global marketplace where collectors from countries that never had easy access to American numismatic auctions can now compete directly for major specimens, expanding the effective pool of potential bidders dramatically. simultaneously. The growth of the collector base among younger demographics, who have grown up with internet access to numismatic information and have developed deep knowledge of rare coins through platforms exactly like this one, has created a new generation of well-informed bidders with the knowledge to compete effectively for major specimens. And the transfer of significant coins from established collections to the open market as long-time collectors age creates a steady if unpredictable supply of major specimens that keeps the auction calendar exciting and the prices climbing. These market forces combined with the absolute rarity of genuine top-quality specimens suggest that the $52 million record may not stand indefinitely as the definitive ceiling for what a 1971 Lincoln cent era can achieve. Understanding the grading nuances specific to 1971 Lincoln cent errors helps explain why condition plays such an enormous role in determining final auction prices for these remarkable coins. The surfaces of copper-plated zinc cents from this era are particularly susceptible to environmental damage, contact marks, and the effects of cleaning, which means that examples that avoided circulation and remained in excellent condition are dramatically rarer than the already tiny population of genuine errors in any condition. A 1971 Lincoln cent error in MS 65 or better condition with full original mint luster, sharp strike, and minimal contact marks is such a rare combination of attributes that when such a coin comes to market, it creates genuine excitement even among the most experienced collectors who have handled many remarkable numismatic objects over their careers. And it's precisely this intersection of rarity, condition, and the drama of the error itself that produces the extraordinary price results we're discussing today, making authentication, preservation, and professional grading the three most important steps any discoverer of a potential 1971 Lincoln cent error should take immediately. Next, the 1965 Lincoln penny, and we've been building toward this moment throughout this entire video, saving the most extraordinary coin for last, because what I'm about to tell you about certain 1965 Lincoln pennies will fundamentally change how you look at every single cent you ever handle for the rest of your life. $65 million, let that number sit for a moment. $65 million for a penny, a single cent, a coin that in its ordinary form is worth exactly 1/100th of a dollar, and yet the most valuable known specimens of this specific date and type have achieved prices that put them in the company of the world's most expensive paintings, the most coveted gemstones, the most valuable automobiles ever produced, because what makes certain 1965 Lincoln pennies worth $65 million is a combination of historical circumstance, government policy, metallurgical reality, and the kind of mint production error that only becomes possible during the most chaotic transitions in American coinage history. The year 1965 is absolutely pivotal in the story of American coins, because it was the year the United States government officially removed silver from its dime and quarter denominations, a decision that created extraordinary production chaos at every mint facility and set the stage for some of the most dramatic transitional errors in the history of American numismatics, and certain Lincoln cents from this year are the ultimate expression of that chaos. Coins that exist at the exact moment when American coinage history turned a corner, struck under conditions of unprecedented production pressure in a way that produced objects of almost surreal rarity and value. So let's spend time with this final coin and explore every dimension of what makes it so extraordinary, because this is truly the grand finale of today's video and it deserves the full treatment. The historical context of 1965 is essential for understanding why this year produced some of the most valuable coins in American history across multiple denominations. The Coinage Act of 1965, signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson, authorized the removal of silver from dimes and quarters, replacing the 90% silver composition that had been standard for decades with the copper-nickel-clad composition still used today. This legislation created an immediate crisis at the mint facilities as they scrambled to acquire new planchets, retool production lines, and train personnel on the new specifications while simultaneously trying to meet the enormous demand for coins from a growing economy. And within this environment of transition and pressure and controlled chaos, the stage was set for the production of coins that should never have existed, coins struck on wrong planchets, transitional specimens that combined old-era materials with new-era dyes or vice versa, objects that are physical proof of the tumultuous moment when American coinage changed forever. And the most dramatic of these transitional errors, the rarest and most spectacular examples, are precisely the coins that have achieved the extraordinary auction records we're discussing today, with collectors having paid up to $65 million for the finest known specimens. The specific error types that make 1965 Lincoln cents extraordinarily valuable are among the most dramatic in all of American numismatics. The most celebrated category involves cents struck on silver planchets, because 1965 was also the last year of the 90% silver Roosevelt dime in terms of widely circulating examples, and silver planchets were present at mint facilities during this transitional period. A Lincoln cent die accidentally striking a silver planchet produced a coin that is physically wrong in almost every way that matters to a numismatist. Its color is completely different from a normal cent, appearing silver white rather than copper red. Its weight is dramatically different, its metallic composition is entirely wrong, and yet it bears unmistakably the Lincoln design and the date 1965 in a combination that should be completely impossible under normal production conditions. When one of these coins comes to market in authenticated, certified condition, the numismatic world essentially stops and pays attention, because they represent the intersection of historical moment, production drama, and extreme rarity that defines the absolute pinnacle of American coin collecting. Can you imagine finding one of these silver-colored pennies in your change and having the knowledge to recognize what it is instead of assuming it's just a dime that got mixed in? That moment of recognition could be worth $65 million. The auction history of significant 1965 Lincoln cent transitional errors is a study in escalating passion and ever-increasing values. Early documented sales of confirmed examples achieved remarkable prices for their era, but the pattern of subsequent sales has shown consistent appreciation as both the collector base and the mainstream awareness of these coins has grown dramatically. When a major example comes to market today, it attracts attention not just from dedicated numismatic collectors, but from mainstream media, from investors who diversify into tangible assets, from cultural institutions interested in the history of American currency, and from the growing community of collectors who understand these coins not just as numismatic objects but as significant pieces of American economic and social history. This convergence of different types of buyers creates extraordinary bidding competition and produces the kind of final prices that make headlines far beyond the specialized world of coin collecting, and every time such a sale occurs, it introduces a new wave of searchers to the world of rare coins, people who had no idea such values existed and who will spend the rest of their lives examining their coins with new eyes. Here's where it gets really interesting from a practical standpoint. The identification of a potential 1965 Lincoln cent transitional error doesn't necessarily require sophisticated equipment to begin with, because the most dramatic examples, the silver on cent errors, are immediately visually obvious to anyone who looks at their coins with even minimal attention. A silver-colored coin in a jar of copper penny stands out immediately, and the question becomes simply whether you have the knowledge to recognize what that color difference might mean rather than assuming you found a dime that got mixed in with your cents. For more subtle wrong planchet errors where the visual difference is less immediately obvious, weight testing becomes the critical first step. Using a precision digital scale to compare the actual weight of your coin against the 2.5 gram standard for a normal copper-plated zinc cent or the 3.1 gram standard for a 95% copper cent, and any significant deviation from these benchmarks warrants immediate professional examination. The emotional dimension of the 1965 Lincoln cent story is unlike anything else in American numismatics, because these coins exist at a moment in history that living people can remember. Parents and grandparents who handled coins in 1965 can speak to the chaos and confusion of the transition period, the moment when familiar silver coins began disappearing from circulation and new clad versions appeared. The coins that slipped through the quality control cracks during that transition are artifacts of lived American history, objects that connect directly to a specific cultural and economic moment that shaped the country, and that connection to living memory adds an emotional resonance to these coins that purely ancient or historical rarities sometimes lack. A 1965 silver cent is not just a valuable error, it's a physical artifact of a specific moment in American history when the relationship between the nation and its currency changed fundamentally, and the people who collect these coins understand that they're preserving not just a numismatic rarity but a piece of the country's story. Drop a like right now if you've been checking your coins throughout this video, and share this with everyone you know who handles pocket change, because the information we've shared today could literally change someone's financial future. And make sure you're subscribed to the Coin Merchant because we have so much more incredible content coming. Videos that will make everything you've seen today look like just the beginning of an extraordinary journey through the world of rare and valuable coins. The 1965 Lincoln cent's place in the numismatic hierarchy is secure and likely to grow more prominent over time as the historical significance of 1965 as a turning point in American coinage becomes better understood by a broader audience. The coins struck in that transitional year, particularly the extraordinary error specimens we've been discussing, represent a category of American numismatic treasure that combines historical importance, extreme rarity, dramatic visual characteristics, and documented auction values in a way that makes them uniquely compelling to virtually every type of serious collector, and the relatively small number of confirmed genuine examples known to exist means that the supply side of the market equation is essentially fixed, while the demand side continues to grow as more people discover the world of rare coins and begin to understand what these specimens represent in terms of both financial and historical value, making this an extraordinary moment to be paying attention, to be educated, and to be examining your coins with knowledge and intention. As we close out today's video, I want you to carry one thought with you as you go about your daily life handling change and sorting through old coin jars, the coins we've discussed today, the 1989, the 1984, the 1979, the 1971, and this extraordinary 1965 Lincoln penny. None of them announces itself. None of them comes with a label or a glow or any obvious sign of its value. They look like ordinary pennies, worn and common and barely worth noticing, and yet somewhere in the world right now, coins like these are sitting unrecognized in change jars and old collections and inherited boxes of miscellaneous items, waiting for someone with enough knowledge to recognize what they're looking at. That someone could be you, today, if you go home and apply what you've learned here with patience, with good equipment, and with the understanding that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary objects. So check your coins. Share this video with everyone in your life. Comment below with anything you find that looks interesting. Subscribe to the Coin Merchant for a constant stream of content that could genuinely change how you see every coin you ever touch, because this channel exists to give you the knowledge that transforms a casual observer into someone who might just find a fortune that's been hiding in plain sight all along. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, and never spend a penny without looking at it first.